Welcome everybody to the Real Talk podcast, the real estate podcast which Benji and I will dive in to the depths of the prime and super prime marketplace, giving you hints, tips, advice, and fantastic ideas to help your real estate career. During this podcast, Benji and I will be speaking to the best estate advisors across the globe and finding their stories, finding out what made them the best in class in their sector.
Yeah, and we want to give back. We want to teach people, guide people, essentially a podcast that we would want to be listening to and watching to our 21-year-old selves. And case in point, Ollie actually ripped up our script 5 minutes ago. So one of the other best parts of why the podcast will be great is it is just raw, it's genuine, and it's just a deeper dive into us and what we see happening.
100%. We're really looking forward to it. We've got some amazing guests lined up. From Brazil to Paris to here in central London. Some of the people that we're going to be interviewing, you do not want to miss. But this first podcast is all about Benji Weinberger and Oliver Ingles and who we are, how we got to this space in our careers, where we started, the pitfalls, the moments we've cried, the moments we've laughed. We will tell you everything about us. So first of all, I'm going to interview you.
Lots of crying.
And that is a story you have to tell everybody about how recently you cried on a pitch.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, sure.
So anyway, we're going to start literally right at the start of where you grew up, Benj.
Ooh,
where did you go to school? What did you study? How did you formulate that first steps into real estate?
Okay, well, I was never really good at school.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really enjoy school. I was always middle ground, plodding along, always preferred to be the class clown, and always loved the sports. Whenever there was PE, anything sport related, I always loved that and did quite well at that. But grew up North London, slowly graduating a bit closer to where the office is. But started obviously primary school, secondary school, then went off to university.
Nice. What did you study?
I did business management.
Okay.
Which I've never used ever. I got a 2-1 somehow with honours, and I've never used the degree ever. My parents told me that I needed it as a fallback because it opens doors, and you don't need any qualifications to be a real estate advisor. So
do you think that literally through that, is it 2-year course?
3 years.
3-year course.
Yeah.
Have you taken anything from that? Is it like, I know you said you haven't taken any. Was there even a snippet that you thought, that's a good idea?
It was more the life skills that I learned.
Okay.
Not so much the study side of it.
Yeah.
Interacting with people, standing on my own 2 feet, having to do my own washing, having to do my own cooking, life skills.
Yeah.
Which would probably be the key takeaway that I had from uni rather than anything that I actually learned.
Yeah.
Although having said that, the more I'm entrepreneur, I'm realizing that I like business and I like building businesses. Obviously why we're sat here at DDRE Global, there was the entrepreneurial side and the different courses that you had in business management that was always of interest. But overall, I wouldn't say there's much that I learned. But then anyway, fast forward, I was like graduating and I was like, shit, I need to get a job.
Yeah.
I need to start earning some money. And I hounded Daniel Daggers.
Yeah.
For a job because I saw what he did. He worked at Knight Frank, he had a nice car, went to some beautiful properties. It was just when he started doing social media. I was like, that's what I want to do. So I hounded him. He ignored me 4 times.
Love that.
On the 5th time, I said,
completely blank?
Yeah, just ignore me. It was
reply.
in 2014, 2015 when the market was taking off.
Yeah.
And 5th time, I said, listen, if you can't, get me an interview at Knight Frank, I have to ask someone else.
Yeah.
Anyway, he then arranged for an interview. Interview lasted 15 minutes. My boss was like, my then boss to be said, literally, I'll give you 3 months. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, you're fired.
Wow.
I was like, okay, great. Got the job offer through. I remember so clearly how amazing it was. Shit salary. It was like, I don't know, 20K, but I was like, amazing. That's a lot of money because I'd come from uni where, you take student loans and you don't have much money. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I was there for 7.5 years.
And so what office did you start in? So where were we? So Knight Frank and in
That was
what
Knight Frank,
office?
St John's Wood.
Okay.
Was the only place that I had worked. It was my first job, although when I was younger, on the weekends, I dabbled in real estate lettings with the local agency that I worked for, but I didn't really have any guidance or anything. That was just to earn a bit of pocket money. But yeah, straight into the St John's Wood office, which is shark infested waters for those that don't know. And if you can do well in St John's Wood in North London, you could probably survive in most markets.
Yeah. And sorry, you went in as what, a trainee negotiator?
I went in
how
as
did it happen?
I went in as just a negotiator. I was looking after properties up to, I think when I went in, 750,000.
Yeah.
The team that I was in was the core market team. I had some unbelievable people in the office with me. So I was very fortunate that I was able to learn and ask loads of questions. And it got to the point where I had so many questions that one of my mentors at the time, Annabelle, she was like, listen, you've got so many questions, which is great. I'm going to put an hour aside at the end of every day. Ask me the questions you've got and we'll go through it.
Nice. So was she your mentor then? Like, would you say she was your first mentor?
Indirectly, because she was my manager and she had targets to hit, and therefore she wanted me to do well to hit my targets, which meant she hit her targets. But you know, my real mentor has been Daniel, but Annabelle was unbelievable, and I still to this day maintain that she's probably one of the best negotiators I've ever come across. Like, insane. She's sold property to people where 5 years later they come to sell it, and I was like, why did you buy it? They're like, Annabelle was just so convincing.
Love that.
Then became youngest associate at Knight Frank, became the youngest partner at Knight Frank, and then left and joined this most wonderful business called DDRE Global.
Nice. So look, we're going to get onto DDRE
Yeah.
Global, and then I want to stay on this chapter of your life for a time being. In that first, let's say, 6 months of you starting, I know you've got rack your brains back now to 2014, 15.
Yeah.
What was the most challenging part, do you think, now? And we know St John's Wood is obviously a very fierce marketplace, lots of competition. But what was the biggest fear in that first 6 months?
Well, 3 months. You gave me 3 months.
You gave me 3 months, yeah.
I'll tell you a story of why, but the thing that stands out to me was having to make phone calls. And I had come from university where you WhatsApp, you text, it was Facebook Message, it was, you never called anyone. Well, that was just the environment that I grew up in, that picking up the phone was like alien to me.
Yeah.
And I'd then gone to my desk, and you have literally 100 names, and your boss is like, go and call them. Yeah. And I'm like, shit, I don't know how to speak on the phone. I'm not confident on the phone. And that for me was the most daunting thing. And I will never forget, the reason why I'll never forget it, and it's really deep inside me, is because the office was full one day. And my boss at the time, who was amazing, like, not digging him out, it was just a great story that I remember. He said, I want you to stand up when you're on the phone because you project your voice, you're more confident, you're walking around. I was like, okay, fine. So I did that, and I was on the phone, and I heard the whole office went like super quiet. And the phone call finished, and I think I was sat down, and in front of a full office, my boss said, stand up. I was like, okay. And he goes, in front of everyone, that was the worst phone call I've ever heard in my career.
No way.
There's some 21-year-old who's shit scared of the phone call, of the phone, and just outed me in front of everyone. Yeah. And I think that has kind of driven me, that I remember that always. Yeah. So now I'm like super mindful and super.
How did that make you feel in the moment?
I felt like it wasn't that big.
Yeah.
Like there couldn't have been a hole big enough to swallow me up.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to, I know we were joking about it, crying. Yeah. Like I hated it. Yeah. Like I absolutely hated it, and often would go home crying. Yeah. Because my family live overseas, so I was living by myself, and often if your friends are busy, I just started going out with my now wife Talia. She was living at home, but often if my mates were busy, I would go home, and the last person I spoke to in the office would be the next person I spoke to the next morning. Wow. And when you're going to a job that you're not good at, like I wasn't good at it. Yeah. And I didn't know anything. I still don't. I didn't know much. Yeah. And it was horrible. So, you know, another reason why I think these podcasts are super important, to give these people, you know, that extra voice where we can teach them and show them our failings, that gives them a bit of comfort. It's
really interesting. Did you at any point in that first 3 months think, fuck this, I can't do this, I'm not going to turn up tomorrow, I'm just going to, you know what, easy thing to do is I can just stay in bed tomorrow, text my manager in the morning and go, it's not for me, thank you. And
so it's really interesting to say that. Not really, because I needed to make something of myself. Like I needed to I wanted to prove to myself and to everyone, because I was struggling in the first few months, that I'm like I could make something of myself.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you say that, because at the back end of my time at Knight Frank, I felt that.
Wow.
And more often than not, in my last, I would say 6 months, every day I would wake up and think, what excuse can I come up with to text my boss to not come in today?
Wow. But why at the end then? What was the transition? Because, you can understand the start, because you're like, you're nervous, you don't know what you're doing, you think everyone's looking at you.
Yeah.
We've all been in those offices where we've picked up a phone call and literally you think all eyeballs are on you.
Yeah.
And the pressure is on.
I think I start, and I don't believe that the grass is always greener on the other side. I absolutely don't. I think the grass is green where you water it. But I started to see an alternative in terms of the brokerage and what this business was doing. I was like, I'm in a box, restricted of price point, neighborhood, wasn't getting paid anywhere near what I thought I should have. And meanwhile, I knew what was being built here. And there were certain things that I disagree with the corporate structure, certain people that perhaps were in the office at the time that just made it unenjoyable. And it's interesting you say that at the beginning of my career, but I started feeling that in the middle of my career. And that's when I knew I had to take the leap of faith and take the opportunity to do what we're doing now, because I was in a place of comfort. I started to resent what I was doing as a job, and I'm so passionate about what I do. I was like, this for me, I was like, that's the turning point. I've got to leave.
Yeah, love that. So, okay, your first sale, your first ever sale.
Is this all? Are we going to talk about you as well?
Yeah, we'll get on to it.
It's not just about me.
We'll get on to me.
It's not the Benji Weinberger.
No. We'll get on to me in a little bit. Okay, I want to know about your first sale.
My first sale was a disaster.
Tell us a story.
And I'll never forget it. It was in St John's Wood in a building called Apsley House. It was £812,500. I think I got paid like £3,000 or whatever it was. But I remember it because we had a CRM system where a colleague of mine had added onto the system that it was the service charges were £3,000 for the year.
Okay.
So I went on my viewing, super confident, really good viewing. Viewing's going well, little 2-bed, 650 square foot. And the buyer said, what's the service charge? £3,000. Great. Next day, offer, best feeling ever receiving. Like, even now, like when you receive an offer, it's the best feeling. And going through the conveyancing, obviously had the offer accepted, under offer, getting close to exchange. Buyer's lawyers doing the due diligence and realizes the service charge is not £3,000. It's £12,500, which, considering she's buying an apartment for £812,000, that's a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And there was a massive curveball, and we had to renegotiate the price slightly, which is why it was £812,500. I think it was agreed at £850 or whatever it was. But that lesson learned for me was you have to make sure that all of the information that you're giving in our job is like super accurate.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that, again, I had Annabelle, who was hand holding me and did everything to get the deal across the line. But that deal took me 5.5 months
to get through.
Yeah. Obviously, I joked that my boss said you got 3 months. I think he saw enough in me that that the deal was going to come. But yeah, it took me 5.5 months to do my first deal, and then it was got the confidence. I got the bug, the love bug of doing deals, and that was it.
It's almost like an addiction, like a drug, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you get that drug, that hit of doing a deal, agreeing something, like there is no buzz like it.
Yes, but then my view of that adrenaline and where that comes from has changed.
Okay.
I used to think it was the result, i.e. you get the email from the lawyer saying it's exchanged. Yeah. But that feeling is literally like 5 seconds of reading
fast.
The email. And then you're like, okay, well, that's done.
Yeah.
So I now take so much joy and privilege out of the journey of getting to that point, of knowing what the steps are to get to we've just exchanged, and just enjoying that moment throughout the process. But yeah, the adrenaline of doing a deal of whatever it is great, it's the best.
Okay, so during that first year then, if you could speak to Benji 10 years or so ago and give him one bit of advice, something that you know now that you want to tell younger Benji, what would you sit down face to face and tell younger Benji?
Can we swear on this podcast?
Yeah. I mean, nothing too explicit, but
I would say network the fuck out of every single room you go into and with every single person that you meet.
Love that. Explain.
I wasn't taught the value of building a network and growing a network, because my boss always used to say to me, he does 80% of his business with 20% of his clients. And I never understood it, only up until I really started coming here, which to me says he does, a lot of business with a small amount of people. So for me, having more people that want to help you, that you can call on, that you can help, you will succeed far greater than any of your colleagues and competition. And I was under the impression that being sat at my desk from 9 to 5 was me being busy.
Yeah.
But you're not meeting anyone there. Fine, you might be on the phone, in and out, but you're not meeting anyone. You're not building rapport. You're not building relationships with people.
Yeah.
So the network side of it for me would be what I would tell myself at 21.
And a lot of people obviously watching are going to be younger generation. We have a lot of people reaching out to us, obviously asking advice and like, how did you get to where you are in the industry? And you said obviously your first deal being £812,000, and you're able to deal properties up to that kind of level. Tell us that process then throughout the years of what levels you were able to go up to, and like as each year went by, what kind of your high sale was, just to give people a flavour of how long it takes to get to a point in their careers where we have the opportunity to sell, prime and super prime property.
Yeah, look, I guess it's the key difference between brokerage and the corporate beast that is out there, which has worked for so long, but the times are changing. I always had, as I touched on before, I always had a box. St John's Wood was my patch, Regent's Park.
And that's a geographical box as
well.
Yeah,
geographical, but also price point.
Yeah.
Again, as I said, I started at 750,000, but then because any good agent will always show 10% above, if a buyer came to me saying they got 750,000, well, I want to show them things up to £1 million.
Yeah.
But technically that was out of my remit.
Yeah.
So I was always pushing and pushing. Then it went up to 1 million. Then it went up to 2 million.
Yeah.
Then it went up to 4 million, 5 million. And that was the team that I then ended up running that was kind of capped up to 5.
Yeah.
But then wasn't allowed to deal with anything after that. But at that point, I kind of then started to get into a phase of thinking about, leaving.
Yeah.
So, but now, the beauty of it now is I can go wherever, whenever, at any price point. I can go from selling something in St John's Wood at 500,000 to assisting a client with a search in Ibiza up to 30 million euros, and anything in between.
Which is true.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of what we're building and what us as agents are given, and the platform that we give to agents is that there's no box and there's no limits.
Yeah.
You go and do whatever you want to do. So for example, it took me 8 years or 9 years in my career to sell something over £10 million. I've got colleagues in this business who are 21, 22, 23, who are selling stuff for 5, 6, 7, 8 million pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because not to say that they're not good enough, they just got the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And going back to what I said before in terms of networking, if you meet the customer first and you're good at what you do, you have the opportunity to do that deal. You don't have to be like, oh shit, it's an £8 million lead, I've got to pass it over to my colleague.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And so you talk about meeting the customer first, and to a lot of people might not know what that means. Like, what do you mean by how do I meet that customer, Benji? Like, where do I go meet these ultra high net worth individuals? Explain what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, the truth is I'm still finding that out myself. Prospecting is possibly the hardest part. Well, it's one, there's so many hard parts of what we do. It's one of the hardest parts. It's the lifeblood of our business, right? It's the business that we bring in, and it's very hard doing that. So I guess you have to, be in the right places, speak to the right people, make sure your clients that you've done business with are speaking to all their friends and family about you and how great you are, building a social platform, because we obviously get business from social media, letter dropping, but there's prospecting, there's so many different avenues of it. It's very hard. And even someone like myself who's been doing this for 10, nearly 11 years now, I'm still finding the balance of what works, where to put more money in, where to invest, where to pull back from. Yeah. It's hard.
Okay, this is the question then. If you started fresh again today, okay, and you've got to go and find that £5 million client today, if you had to leave this office in an hour's time and I said, right, by the end of the day, I want you to come back with a potential £5 million client, what would you do?
Great question. And if it's a good answer, I'll go and do it myself this afternoon.
Now
Yeah, like I've got, like going back to the analogy, I do 80% of my business, 20% of my clients. I'd probably go and call the clients that I have done business with, who know my track record, who know me. I don't know how I would word it to them. Like, oh, my mate on the podcast said, you've got to get £5 million listening by the end of the day. I don't know what I would come up with, maybe use ChatGPT to come up with a script of something that I can say to them. But I'd go to people that I've done business with and say, do you know any friends, family? Have you heard at the Friday night dinner table or around the Sunday roast? Anyone mentioning that they're looking to sell, they're struggling, because, I'd really love to help them. Can you perhaps connect them with me? So that would be my first go-to.
And when you say these clients, what does trust look like? How do you win trust? How do you, because these people that you call obviously trust you, okay? But how do you gain their trust in the initial stages?
I mean, it's the cliche of being honest. I mean, one of the things for me of the trust element is passion. And I try and articulate myself. When I go to meet people, and I explain what I do and why I do it and how long I've been doing it for, and previous clients that I've worked with, they get a sense. There's no script, right? Like when I go and meet someone and I talk about the market and I go and talk about what I've done, like I'm just saying what I've done and what's happening in the market. Like I'm not asking ChatGPT to come up, well, I did just say that 2 minutes ago, not asking it to come up with a script of how to talk to people about what my view is. Like I'm just me. Some people will like it, but ultimately some people won't like it. But the people I do business with will like it. So when I talk just from the heart and who I am, I think that has a lot of impact on whether they trust you or not.
Yeah.
And nowadays, a lot of people can read between the lines, and they can read and they can see if someone's bullshitting, because there's a lot of people out there, perhaps, that are like that. I need to stop swearing. I don't know why I'm swearing. But I think the passion side of it, and then with the track record, where I used to work, where I'm working now, I think it starts to build that element of trust.
That. Okay, cool. Right, so
shall I ask? When do you want me? Because I know we ripped up the script. Like, when am I going to ask?
I mean,
are you ready to talk, or do you want me to carry on?
Well, I just wanted to ask a couple more questions.
Okay, fine.
The people who want to know Benji Weinberger outside of real estate, there's probably a lot of people, they see you on socials all the time.
Just my mum.
They see you talking on podcasts and all the rest. And obviously we love to add a lot of value add back to our clients and everybody else. But what does Benji like doing on a weekend? Like, you wake up on a Saturday, there's no appointments. What are you doing? What are you doing this weekend?
So my weekends are pretty scripted from weekend to weekend. I will try and have a lie-in in the morning, as in a lie in bed, like not a lion, like a lay in bed. Yeah. Because I feel like I work quite hard during the week. Although I every Saturday get woken up by my wife at 8 a.m.
Okay.
Because she wants to go to the gym.
Okay, cool.
So I don't have a lion ever.
Yeah.
Then if I'm up for it, probably when Talia comes back from the gym, we'll go for a walk.
Yeah.
We might get a matcha latte with soy milk and a vanilla pump, sugar-free from Starbucks. I then will play football, and a big thing about me is you're probably thinking, where the hell is he going? Is he literally?
Then we'll have breakfast.
Saturdays for me are football. So I play semi-professionally. When I was younger, I used to play for Arsenal. And
who do you play for now?
London Lions, who are in step 5 of the football pyramids. If we get 8 promotions back to back, which obviously will never happen, we'll be in the Prem.
Wow.
And then we'll bat at Ipswich, which we'll come on to. So Saturday is routine for me. I'll have my pre-match meal at 10:30 or 11, always the same, bowl of pasta, tuna, sweet corn, and then go to the ground. Obviously, if it's home, it's around the corner from my house, so that's quite nice. We'll play football, we'll then come home. As I'm getting older, I'll now be knackered. We'll probably go for dinner with Talia or see friends. And then Sunday, depending on the weather, might play golf. Might see some friends, spend some time with Talia, with her family. And then Sunday evening, social media prep for the week ahead. And get my notes ready for our Monday morning meeting.
Nice. And you got married last year?
I got married.
It was last year, wasn't it?
It depends when we're telling the people the podcast was filmed.
So 2023?
No, 2024.
24.
April 24. So.
And you've been, how long have you been with Talia for?
It depends when the podcast is going out.
When did you meet her?
We've been going out for 10 years.
Okay. How did you meet?
Years. Great. Quick story. So we were at the same secondary school, never spoke. Same sixth form, never spoke. Same university, first year, never spoke.
Really?
Second year university, through mutual friends, ended up living together.
Wow.
And then that's it.
Christ.
Yeah.
And obviously you'd seen each other
Yeah,
throughout
like
those
obviously,
school years, but never spoke to each other.
Yeah,
never talked
not
to
many
each
people
other.
in the school, but we were just in different
wow.
social crowds.
Okay, cool.
And then maybe that was destiny, just bringing us together.
Nice, love that. Love that.
So Ollie, tell me a bit about your background. Go back to your beginnings.
So do you know what? Very similar in the fact that I went to university for 6 months. Okay, I again was a bit like you at school. I classed myself as a B student, as in literally on my GCSEs, everything was a B. So everything, as in almost like I looked at it, going, no, they've fucked up here because everything's a B. It was impossible. But no, I was literally all Bs, and you know, my teachers. I was the type of kid that if Ollie had applied himself, he could have got an A, like that kid. Okay. And I went to Brighton University for 6 months studying. What did I study? I think it was business and sport business. Okay, and hated it. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, you know, with so many kids nowadays, it's like you don't really know what you want to do in the future. And at school, it's like, what university are you going to? That's all it is. You know, how do you get enough UCAS points, get into university, blah, blah, blah. And you just go and do a course for 3 or 4 years. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I love sport. I was coaching women's football. I was doing a bit of PT, personal training on the side. So I loved kind of interacting with people and clients, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I went there for 7 months. I think I turned up on average to 7% of my classes. I was just not in it. And it was really hard actually for me at the time because you feel like you're letting down your parents. You know, they were like, Ollie, how's it going? I'm like, not turning up, and stressful for them. They're upset. All your friends and family around you at the time, they're going like, oh, what are you doing in your life? Super hard.
But why weren't you going? You were just clubbing.
Do you know what? Yeah, I mean, it was like an element of going out, and to be honest with you, I just didn't enjoy it. And I actually found that at the time when there was no one kind of like pushing you, like you said earlier, to say, you've got to turn up at 9 to go there, and they're out the door. And then I was just not doing it. And then you get into that rhythm, that cycle. And after 7 months, it was like just after Christmas. I remember it vividly. And I was like, I'm going. So then I came home, didn't have a job. You know, all my friends are at university, so no one's around the town. Mum and dad are like on you every single day saying, what job are you going to go and get? What are you going to do? Like, you know, and it was super stressful. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So anyway, my first ever job was, I loved doing personal training. So my dad paid for me to go on a personal training course for a week, okay, where I became a PT level 3. And passed that course, and I was like, right, now I've got to fucking become a PT. So I joined a gym. It was a Nuffield Health, I think it was at the time. And I was a self-employed personal trainer, okay? And what I loved about the gym was I loved signing up clients. Because that's what the bit I loved the best. You know, that clinching the deal almost at the start. So I was the first one in at 5 a.m. I was giving like free PT sessions, and I was helping all these people. And then I'd secure like a 10-week course of like them 10 PT sessions. Then I wouldn't even love doing the PT element. I just actually loved the buzz of almost signing up a client. And I got quite good at it to a point that at the time, the sales manager who sold the gym memberships, okay, said, Ollie, do you want to do that? Do you want to, like, can you help us out doing some gym membership sales? Okay, I was 18 or whatever I was at the time, 19. And I was like, why not? Let me do it. I do it. And I had a wicked sales manager. And his name was Glenn. He taught me how to overcome objections, sit down opposite someone, do an emotional needs analysis. Because you're at the gym because of a reason. There's normally an emotional reason. You feel like you're overweight. You feel, you know, you're not the body type you want. You're not as fit as you want to be. They're all emotive. And this sounds quite bad, but I used to get to a point where I kind of thought to myself, if I can almost make the person opposite me cry, I brought them down to such a low that I never knew how to pick them back up. To almost be like, don't worry, this is where it changes, you know. And I set up the PT and I set up the protein. There was a couple of people who would, yeah, because you'd almost, it sounds quite strange, but you would almost get someone down to that emotional, like a low, to then pick them back up. Okay.
And were you taught that?
Yeah, I was taught that. I was taught how to overcome, it's £100 a month, but I've only got 80. Or how many coffees do you drink a week? I spend 2 coffees a week. Well, that's tenner, that's £40 a month. Like, he taught me sales. He taught me how to be confident, get to know somebody, and do a real good needs analysis so you could overcome it. So anyway, within about a month or two, I was like number one across the whole of the Nuffield, across the whole of the UK, every single month. I was killing it. I was going out to international schools, signing up international kids, because you had a lot of like UCL and international schools. And I thought one day, well, if I could actually go to the school and I can sign up all these people before as soon as they get into the UK, I can go and do like 50 deals. And that was probably like my month's target. So again, I proactively would meet the head teachers. I'd go and say hello, build a rapport, get their trust so I could go in on a lunchtime, sit behind a little desk with my little, LA Fitness kind of cap on, and these people would come up and just sign. And I remember walking back to my office sometimes going like, there's 50 deals. And my manager like what? That was uncommon. You might do 2 or 3 deals a day in big months, And sometimes it got a bit big for my boots, where I was almost like, okay, I've done 50, see you later. And he's like, well, it's 2:30, Ollie. I'm like, you have just done 50 though, mate. I'm going home. But he taught me sales, and I did that for quite a few years. Loved it. And then one day I had a call from my friend who had a boat charter business out in Ibiza. His dad had bought him a couple of Mastercraft boats. He started a business out there, and he was like, oh, do you want to come out for a week, have a holiday out here? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Love that. So I went out to Ibiza for a week, ended up staying 2 months. I quit my job literally at the end of the week in Ibiza because he had 2 luxury Mastercraft boats, and I went out there and I was like, well, why don't you employ a team to do this? Like, why don't you go out there and you can train them up to go out and sell these luxury charters and stuff like that? And why don't you, because these were really nice boats. It cost about 4 or 5 grand for the day to take a charter out. And why don't you network with the entertainment business, because you had Cafe Mamba around the corner. And he was like, oh, why don't you just do this for me? I'll pay you.
So is that what? So you went for a week?
Yeah,
and
I went for a week.
I
I spent 2 or 3 days on holiday, gave him a couple of ideas, and he said, why don't you just do this for me? And I was like, do you know what? Like, okay, I love my job back at home, but like, I know I could kind of pick that up probably at any point in time. And I literally stayed out there for 8, 9, 10 weeks.
Working illegally?
Yeah. No. So did that for a couple of months. Came back to the UK, joined a gym again. And then this is where I got into real estate. Sorry, I was brought a bit long-winded.
No, it's great. I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you were in Ibiza.
So anyway, one day, a guy walks in, and I loved it when they used to say to me, I'm only here to look at the gym. Because that for me was like a challenge. Like, don't want to sign up. I just want to have a look around. That was like, okay, I've got, this is where I'm going to step up to the plate. And anyway, an hour and a half later, given this guy a tour, sat down with him, we'd gone over his needs analysis, found out all about him, sold him the dream, signed it to a 2-year contract at the gym, okay? Anyway, in our gym contracts, like normal contracts, you have a 10-day calling off period. About 3 or 4 days later, knock on my office door, Ollie, Thingy Bob's back here. I'm thinking, here we go, he's going to cancel. I knew I'd pushed him too hard. He's probably gone home, said to his wife said, why have you joined the gym? And he's here to cancel. I'm going to lose my commission because you don't get your commission. Anyway, so I walked outside. I said, oh, hi, mate. How's it going? Hope you're enjoying the gym. He said, can I have a word with you? Thinking, fuck, here we go. Sat down. And he said, I went home to my wife that night and I said, I'd signed up to this 2-year membership. And she was like, what? You only went there to look around? He was like, yeah. She was like, you never get sold to. Like, this guy must have been good. And he was like, yeah, I came out literally buzzing to go to the gym. I couldn't wait. To get there. And anyway, so he said to me, I run an estate agencies. There were about 10 offices at the time. Have you ever thought about becoming an estate agent? And look, I think we're all probably sat here thinking no one ever dreams to be an estate agent. Okay. And I was like, look, I love what I'm doing. And he was like, come out with me for a day. Let me show you around. Let me show you what I do. So like the next week or so, I went out with him for a day on my day off. And
where was this? What area?
This was around Hertfordshire, so just outside of London. And I loved it. And it was really cool. We went on a couple of pitches, saw some really amazing houses and homes. And I thought, do you know what? Yeah, do you know what? It could be something I quite like doing. So that's literally how I got into real estate. And that was 11 and a half years or so ago. And
then so you were there, and then I know you went to Berkshire Hathaway.
So I was there. I was in Hertfordshire for about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. Again, during that time when I was working for him, I started to sell land. Okay, I'd met a developer, And he used to say to me, Ollie, if you can find me land, I'll give you some money. Okay. And again, at the time when you're not earning much, I was probably earning 13, 14,000 pound basic, 20k OTE, that type of levels. I was spending my day at work, and then in the evening, I was going out to these like large plots of like a bungalow with little old Mrs. May who sat there for 20 years, and a farmer who's got loads of acreage, and I would knock on people's doors and I'd say, look, have you ever thought about selling your land? And I was trying to get option agreements.
Wow.
And I found this guy like 1 or 2 a year, and like at the time, like then he starts to pay you like 10, 15,000 pounds. You think you're a kid at the time. You're like, wow, this is wicked. But then I'm making this guy millions. Like 3 or 4 years later, he'd built the site, he'd developed it, he'd sold it off. So I did that for quite a few years, and actually in the end started building an estate agency for him. But it was a coffee shop estate agency. Because again, very similar to you, like we think entrepreneurially. And I saw like 10 years ago the high street offices were dying. No one wanted to walk into a high street office. No one now walks into a high street office. They don't want to. You walk in, guys in, cheap shiny suits, and you don't want to do it. Not that nice. That's nice. It's Italian.
I was just checking it wasn't shiny. It was a little bit.
And so I sat there one day, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was in a coffee shop, and I was like, blood, this is jams, packed in here. All people with kids and families, and they're all going to move house. And I was like, imagine if we could get our estate agency in here. That was my initial thought. And the guy at the time was like, and I was like, oh, maybe we can speak to Costa, or we can go to Ingles and try and get, and I was thinking like that. He thought, well, let's just open up a coffee shop estate agency. So we literally opened up a coffee shop. Okay. You'd walk in, you'd have 3 baristas, the best, artisan coffee, fresh croissants every morning. And you could sit down with an iPad on the desk. Okay. And you could flick through property, because everyone loves talking about property when they're having a coffee. At the back of the office, behind some glass screening, you had the agents. So you had the divide. You didn't feel intimidated, but also you could go in there and subliminally, everything around you was property. The listings that we had,
And this was about 10 years ago. That's quite forward thinking.
This was about 8 years ago.
Wow.
8 years ago.
In London?
Again, Hertfordshire.
Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what?
And then did that for 2.5 years, I want to say, something like that. And then Berkshire Hathaway. I'd always wanted to work in the prime and super prime marketplace, and this is where I think people will relate to. And I thought to myself, okay, how do I get there? How do I get to that level? And first of all, got to get into London. So someone had introduced me to the MD of Berkshire Hathaway, who had offices here in Marylebone and Hyde Park. And I had a coffee with him, and like literally a month or so later, I work here for Berkshire Hathaway.
Wow.
And yeah, that was amazing. 4.5, 5 years I had there. Again, was number 1 across the whole of the globe. Out of about 33,000 agents, I was 297. So there was 296 people better than me. And yeah, did that for 4 years. Started, and in the end, ran the offices here in Marylebone and Hyde Park. So that is my story.
So that's you in a working capacity. I'd say from a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but it's very much not those sort of hours. Yeah. What is Ollie at home?
A dad.
Okay.
Literally, I am a dad. My son is 4. Well, he's 4 now in this podcast. Whenever you're listening to this, what is the date today? Or we're in December 2. So yeah, my son is 4. Alfie, his name is. Super cheeky chappy, like Jesus. Super cheeky. And just love kind of spending time with Alfie outside of work. He loves football as well, so we're out in the garden. We were like, you get to relive your own childhoods when you have a kid. So like now I'm out in the garden kicking a football around thinking, I love this. Like I wish I could have done this 5 years ago before I had Alfie, So yeah, spending time with Alfie and my wife as well. We love going on holiday. We love exploring, seeing friends. The normal really, and a big Ipswich Town football fan. Somehow there's not many of us, although we're doing all right. We're in the Premiership at the moment, so I take that. So yeah, that's me kind of outside of work.
Are you using, like, obviously now you've got Alfie, right? You've had Alfie for 4 years, and I follow you on
Instagram.
It's not dog. You've got Alfie. You've got your son, which is amazing to see. Obviously, see on socials. taking him out on weekends is amazing. Do
Yeah.
you think that's changed you as an agent in how you approach certain clients?
Yeah, 100%. I think until you are a parent, okay, you can't feel what you feel as a parent. You can't have the same needs as a parent because you don't feel like, you don't know it. So now I've been able to adapt. I understand about space. I understand that actually, they might want another bedroom next to the principal because that's where the little one's going to be and they want to be close to the little one. I understand that actually having more lateral, where there's open spaces between the kitchen and the family areas, that's what they love because they can see their little one playing whilst they cook dinner. Like, I understand that. So now when I'm showing families around places, I can start to relate. And, part of obviously our jobs is to know the client even before we go out. And we do it a lot where whoever I'm meeting, I will always research them first. Okay. So I will know if they've got kids, what their favorite football team is, where they like to go out and eat.
How will you find
socials, digital. Nowadays we can find everything. We talk about Perplexity, the app, where I can literally type in someone's name and it tells me all about them.
This is not a sponsored ad.
It's not a sponsored ad, although you can sponsor us, Perplexity, if you want to. And so now I'm able to go out there and I know they've got a 4-year-old. I know they love Arsenal and they know they love Thai food. So now I can go out there and I can talk and relate because they've got a family, but I can talk that the Thais won the best time in central London and that's around the corner, and oh, by the way, you've got like Arsenal Football Club 20 minutes away. You start talking about that because that's how you know that they're going to relate to you and they're and they're drivers. So having a son, look, you have to grow up, and I'm 33 now, but you have to grow up again. And actually, it's very similar to having our own businesses where you have another baby. I've got 2 babies. I've got Alfie and I've got my business. Because you have to nurture it, you have to help it grow, you have to give it the same love and care, attention, 24/7 as you do a business and a kid.
And then, so going back to how you see things different and you act differently because there's perhaps things you can connect with clients on a different level. How important do you think it is then being more worldly, just in general, and knowing a little bit about a lot of things that you can then find more common ground? Do you think that's important?
Oh, massively. I mean, look, we deal with clients all over the globe, and you have to know, you have to be advanced on what is happening in around the globe, not just from a real estate perspective, financial markets, global markets, political markets, because if you start to understand that, you start to know what, again, could potentially drive the move in the first place. But we all know it's all about connecting with people and relating. If you can actually then have a conversation with, someone who's in finance and talking about the financial market on the viewing, like, they're going to relate to you about it and you can be on their level, So it's like any salesperson. If you go in cold, as in like, hi, do you want to buy this product? It's like, who are you?
So going back to the question you asked me, which I can't remember, it was about 40 minutes ago. If you were to give your 21-year-old self a tip or advice on what to do or what not to do, what would that one thing be?
The tip I would give is the advice that you give to your client, do it for the long term rather than the short term. And what I mean by that is too many agents, I think, out there now are driven by the commission, and they're just going to try and sell the product or give someone advice based upon what's the quickest route for me to get paid. The people who actually give the opposite advice, and sometimes it's not conversations which you shouldn't sell now, or actually it's best to do it next year, or you shouldn't buy this home, that is the person who's going to build trust. And that is the person then you'll get repeat clients over and over and over again. And I think I say it in my bio, actually, on DDRE's website. I was often the guy who told you not what you wanted to hear. Sometimes agents will go in and they'll just say, look, yeah, of course it's worth £10 million. We'll have buyers around the corner. We'll sell this easy. I was the one going, it's worth 8.
And I think that is perhaps one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast, because we have so many people reach out to us, younger people who want to get in the industry, who are the messages are, hey, see what you do. How do I sell those sort of properties? And I think it's so important to stress. And I think it's a problem that we have with the younger generation where they need that instant gratification that they can't. It's like the Amazon economy. I've said it a few times on previous podcasts where you can literally this afternoon order something. It'll be there tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
If it's broken, put it in the bin. You can order another one. It'll be there tomorrow. And I think the key is that that's not reality.
No way.
You know, even for us, we find certain things in real estate difficult, and we've both been doing it for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important to stress to the younger people that are watching this exactly what you said.
Yeah, massive.
You have to think big picture.
Yeah, I mean, look,
long term.
I did my first £10 million. Well, I did a £9.8 million deal. That was my highest deal, like a couple of years ago. That took me 8 or 9 years to get to. My first £12 million, so over £10 million deal, was done over the last year.
I remember so clearly when you did that sale.
Well, the 9.8 one.
The one in Little Venice, and there was like, it was bedlam in my office. They're like, who the hell? Because there was multiple agents.
Yeah,
there were
we were
a few
up
agents.
against Knight Frank, yes.
And in my office, we're like, who the hell is this guy? We've never heard of him before. How the hell has he done this deal? Where did he get the buyer from? What's dodgy? What's gone wrong here? I remember so clearly when you did that.
Yeah,
It was
it's all
you.
about me. Yeah. So look, and now we're doing deals up to. I mean, I've just closed my biggest deal a couple of months ago, at just under £26 million. But that has taken a decade. And I was actually having a joke with a wealth manager the other day saying, there's a lady who's in Hyde Park. She's lovely. Okay. I go and see her every quarter and I give her a bit of a market update, tell her what's happening on the square, who else is sold, who has got planning permission. And anyways, that lady I probably spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours with her, okay, once every quarter, so 4 times a year. So 8 hours probably across the year. I have seen her now for about 4 years. Okay, so what, 4 times 8, 16, 24 hours. So a day of my life I've spent sat in her living room, giving her advice. There's no business out of it yet. She doesn't want to sell yet. She might not sell for another 5 years. We don't know. When she does, I know who she'll come to. Okay, but it's just showing to people that if you think that you're just going to get a quick win in this game and just like try and fall into prime and super prime markets and like it's easy,
it's not going to happen.
It's the opposite. Okay, so I think that probably gives you a little bit of an insight into Benji and I. I hope you find it interesting.
What's the podcast going to look like? I think we've got some big things planned. I know you touched on it before. Yeah. We've got some cool people lined up that's going to come on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I think we want to give back the advice and tips and help people who are not just young and inspiring to be an agent, but people who also want to keep growing their businesses. And I think what they're going to get over the next, however long we do this for, is some real good knowledge, some business ideas about how you can push your business forward. We're going to be speaking to some of the best people around the globe, where they will give insights into their businesses, how they started, where they are now, how they got to their positions. And it's going to be super interesting for everybody to watch.
Well, because it's funny, because people often, when they have knowledge, they don't want to share it. Yeah. They want to keep it for themselves. Yeah. But we want to flip that round. Yeah. We want to give people as much of our knowledge as possible. Yeah. But then also bring the best people on the podcast that we can extrapolate the knowledge from them as well to give back to the to the viewers. And where can we want people to follow us on TikTok, Instagram?
Yeah. So starting us, I'm just looking at the board at the Real Estate Talk podcast. So maybe we'll do a little.
And what's your
screen, if you can just
what's your handle?
My handle is Oliver.Ingles.
And I'm Benji.Weinberger.
Yeah.
And this has been the Real
Talk podcast. Yeah.
With a bit of estate in the middle.
We wanted to do almost like a last segment where people can write into us, DM us, send us an email, put the comments below in the podcast about an element in your career or in your business which you're struggling with, or a question you want to ask us about anything.
And we can try our best to
And we will try and answer some for 5 minutes at the end of every podcast. If not, we'll reach out to you directly and answer the question. Okay? Yeah. So we want you to be part of our community and grow with us.
And thank you. Thank you for coming on this journey. And hopefully you've enjoyed us waffling on.
Yeah.
That was good.
Into the next one.